How far do you reckon Newcastle could go this season? Could they potentially challenge for them Champions League spots?
Avoid defeat, come away with a point, come away with 3 points, it's on to the next one, isn't it?
They have been playing well, they've just drawn a fair few.
Hello and welcome to the pre-match pint with London Pride. We are here at the Fuller's Brewery shop down in Chiswick Lane, where Brentford fans, if you get yourself down here, you get 10% off. I'm Luke Gregory, in for Stu today, can't be with us, and I'm joined, as always, by Natalie and Rhys. Thanks for joining me. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to be back, actually. I've been benched for the last little while, so
just a fair few.
It's nice.
So you've seen Stu around the training ground, you had a few words.
Well, listen, I blanked him. I think it got through to him.
Yeah. That's why he's not here. He couldn't face you.
Exactly, the shame of it.
We had a long wait from the international break to get back into Premier League action, and a 0-0 draw away at Bournemouth. Natalie, a lot of fans maybe will look at that result and feel like we could have maybe potentially got a victory, but a clean sheet and a point away from home in the Premier League is never a bad thing, is it?
No, absolutely not. If you can't win, it's must not lose, really. So that's what we've gained from that game. Yeah, we had chances. I'm sure Ivan Toney will relive that one that he had in the game as well. But ultimately, yeah, it's another point on the board, and it's away from home. And we haven't picked up points away from home haven't kept a clean sheet, I should say, away from home for quite a while in the Premier League. So I think there are plenty of positives to take from it.
And they've been a tough place to go since Gary O'Neill's been in charge, haven't they, Rhys? And like Natalie said, we did have a couple of chances, just maybe couldn't get the breakthrough that we wanted.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think Bournemouth, since Scott Parker departed, they've kind of consolidated. They've rallied behind Gary O'Neill, haven't they? And they've done really well in the interim period. And he's put down a strong marker to be considered for the permanent position. But yeah, it's one of those, you can look at it from one or two perspectives, can't you? I think on paper, as Natalie said, Brentford fans would look at that game as a real opportunity, but there's no easy games in the Premier League. And to go away and perform as we did, another fantastic performance by Ben Mee. He's just getting better and better every week. It's nice to see Mikael Damsgaard get his full debut as well. Again, looked lively, caused problems. Yeah, there's a lot of positives to take from the game, and clean sheets are what breeds confidence from a defensive perspective, and that'll be vitally important going into this weekend.
And it doesn't get any easier. Back-to-back away games, Newcastle away. They had a good result last weekend, and it's such a tough place to go. Their fans are incredible, so how tough is it going to be tomorrow?
This is a team that I think are just full of confidence right now. Even though you might look at where they are in the table or might look at their results and think, they've not necessarily been performing to the level that they would want to be performing at. But actually, I think they've just been unlucky in games. Yeah. They have been playing well. They've just drawn a fair few. So they're definitely, to score 4 at Craven Cottage, they'll be definitely buzzing after that result. And I think players, having Callum Wilson back is a massive plus for them, because I know I've talked about it previously in my other work, where we talked about the miss of Callum Wilson, the miss of Alan St. Maximin. But when you're starting to get these players back and you've got players in confidence, it's just going to be a hard place to go
boost
to. It's huge.
Last year, the 3-3 at Newcastle, it was Eddie Howe's first game in charge, and that place, I was stood working pitch side, and it was so loud. I guess we can expect more of the same tomorrow. How do we, as a team, deal with that atmosphere and that pressure that comes in front of playing in front of 52,000?
Well, I think Thomas will be saying to the guys to be on the front foot from the outset, because I say if Newcastle start brightly, then as you rightly say, they're such a partisan crowd. They're so loud, they're so passionate up in the northeast. But look, I think it's a game we'll look at with some confidence. It was an amazing game, incredible game for the neutral last year, wasn't it? Up at St James's Park, and I think we're a different entity this year as well now. We're a year more experienced, and there's no fear, I don't think, going to Newcastle. I think, as you rightly say, aside from the atmosphere, the teams are fairly evenly matched on paper. And it's certainly a game that I think Thomas and Cole will be looking at to try and get 3 points from, as we do every game. But yeah, I think if we start brightly, I think it'll dampen down the atmosphere a little bit, and hopefully give the players the boost by quietening the crowd to go on and perform well. But I think it's going to be a tough game regardless of the atmosphere, but I think one that we're better equipped for this year than we were last.
And they had 2 back-to-back draws at home to Bournemouth and Crystal Palace, and I think Eddie Howe said in his post-match after Fulham that they're probably down where they'd like to be on their points return this season. But you look at their fixture list, have only had one defeat. It's not been a bad start for them, has it, Natalie?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think there's a lot to be positive about with Newcastle. They've had injuries. They've been able to cope with those injuries and only lose one game in a season so far. It's been a decent start. It's just that they've had maybe too many draws for their liking. They've not been able to convert those into wins. But ultimately, again, a bit like the Bournemouth thing, if you're not losing games, at least, if you're not winning games, you're not losing that many games, and that's the situation with Newcastle. And they've just got players who I think are relishing their chance now in the squad. You look at Miguel Almiron and the goal that he scored against Fulham, a player that incredible finish. But you look at him as a player that at one stage it looked like he might be on his way out of Newcastle, but he's been brought back into the fold. Clearly, Eddie Howe's loving life with him, and likewise with Miguel Almiron and Eddie Howe. And I just think there's players there full of confidence. So forget they haven't won as many games as they would like. They're still a team that we should be a bit wary of.
How far do you reckon Newcastle could go this season? Could they potentially challenge for them Champions League spots?
Well, it's such a funny season, isn't it? Because you look at some of the teams you'd expect to be up there, they're not quite getting into the levels that they want to be at, i.e. like Liverpool, for example. But I'm not sure that I would see Newcastle as a Champions League team just yet. I'm sure obviously that's their long-term aim, but they're definitely a team that's going to upset the top 7, possibly, but they'll definitely, I imagine they'll finish top 10 at least.
We saw them in that game with Man City on Super Sunday, 3-1 up. It looked like they were going to get that win if it weren't for superhero Haaland, who was just unreal and unstoppable at the moment. And then they went to Anfield and had a good performance, and 90+7, I think, or 90+8 it was. Liverpool got the winner, but it shows in them games that they can challenge with the bigger clubs at the top end of the division, and that we said it's going to be a tough game, but it just proves that they can be on it on their day. Yeah,
it can be, but with the greatest of respect, as can we, and I think that's the league, isn't it? That it just takes an element of complacency from one of the self-proclaimed Big 6 or Big 7, and any team is capable of causing an upset in the Premier League. So, yeah, great. I mean, look at the way we swept aside Man United at home. Yeah. They just need to be off it. We need to be on it, and that's the same. I think. Yeah, listen, Newcastle are a completely different proposition to what they were before Eddie Howe took over, and they've had a reasonable start to the season, but I wouldn't swap where they are for where we are in regards to progression. I think there's a lot more to come from our new signings as well. Yeah. And look, it's going to be a tough afternoon tomorrow. Of course it is, but I think it's two evenly matched teams on paper, and I think if we apply ourselves correctly and properly, we'll certainly give Newcastle a very, very tough game.
Yeah.
And Eddie Howe said in his post-match after Fulham that for him it was a big game in their season, the 4-1 win at Fulham. Do you think now their aim is going to be get a little bit of momentum and try and kick on for that? Obviously we don't want that, but that'll be their aim, won't it?
Absolutely, of course. You want to build on what you've just achieved at Fulham, and putting 4 past any Premier League team is pretty impressive. Yeah. We know what that's like this season, and they'll look to build on that. Like I mentioned already, there are players in that team are sort of building their own confidence, and that's all coming together quite nicely for Newcastle. I think we can be a match for them, certainly. I do think it'll be a difficult afternoon, just because I think at St James's Park they know how to make it a very difficult afternoon for you. But like you say, if we just go at them from the off and just completely bamboozle them, then who knows?
But we are as well. I think we're acutely aware of our kind of positioning, and I think Newcastle still have that maybe delusions of grandeur slightly. As a big club as they are, they'll look at Brentford, Fulham, Bournemouth as their kind of their bankers. Yeah, I think that plays right into our hands. We've shown in the games thus far, and what we did last season, that we're more than capable, more than a match for most. So that could also play into our hands. The fact that Newcastle will be looking at our game on Saturday, going, this could almost be a must-win. But for us, it's a case of go and perform, and again avoid defeat, come away with a point, come away with 3 points. It's on to the next one, isn't it?
Do you reckon that would be a message Thomas would maybe be saying to the team before the game, that Newcastle are going to be expecting to win this game, and we can go out there and really make a statement?
I would, maybe in slightly different terms, but I think. So when you're the perceived underdogs, especially, you know that it just takes someone to be off their game in the opposition, and it presents opportunity. And I say Newcastle aren't well beaten. They haven't turned into Champions League team just yet. But no, listen, they're a good side. But as a we, and I think I would pitch us in that kind of middle group of teams within the Premier League. There's almost like 3 tiers in there at the moment, and I think we're knocking on the door of that middle tier. And I think. As you say, Newcastle will look at the game and go, it's a real chance for us, but I think Thomas will be doing the same, going, look, if Newcastle aren't at it, we've got a real opportunity to cause an upset here, and I think I think team selection will be key, obviously, and I'm sure we'll come on to that in a minute. But there's an opportunity there for us on Saturday for sure.
Well, just on team selection, last week we saw Hickey drop down to the bench, hoping not an injury or anything, or just potentially being rested after the Scotland games in international break. But we saw Damsgaard make his first Premier League start. It's going to be interesting tomorrow what kind of team is out there. Does Hickey come back in there, and is Ethan fit enough to maybe get on the pitch? It's a tough one with that team selection tomorrow.
Well, we had that debate last time out when we were talking about Bournemouth about the fact that the centre-backs are all coming, or the defence is coming back into full fitness. I still think it's a little early for Ethan. He may well travel, but I'm not sure that he'll be ready to play as yet. I think Hickey will slot back in. I just think that's natural, if it's just because he was rested. Because I just love his sort of no-nonsense attitude, his confidence for how young he is. For someone that's just started out playing in the Premier League as well, it's like
looks like he's been playing for years, isn't it?
Absolutely, he's not bothered at all.
No.
He's clearly just fitted in so well, and I just think it'd be great to see him back. And then you have to wonder what happens with Pontus, if he's fit or not. And then obviously that's another question for Thomas Frank to sort of answer. But there's a few decisions to be made, but some I expect will just be a formality, like Hickey perhaps coming back in.
And I know probably Ivan doesn't view as it going back to his old club, but maybe something on his mind, just thinking, can I get a goal in front of?
Well, Ivan wants to score every opportunity, but I think there'll be a little added edge to it for sure. It's the one that got away, isn't it? He's an England international. It's any club that lets someone that goes on to have such an illustrious career as Ivan should be kicking themselves. And I think for Ivan, it's an opportunity. Again, I'm sure his shoulders will be back and his head will be held high after being involved with England and going back to his old stomping ground. And he'll be a wee bit frustrated, I would imagine, after the Bournemouth game. Again, strikers put themselves in positions to score goals and miss chances, and Ivan won't want to dwell too much on that. And it's a great chance to remind people of what they've missed out on when he goes back to St James's Park at the weekend.
And it's a brilliant away day for Brentford fans to be going to. Just one thing that's going to probably annoy him is the steps up to that away end. There's a lot of them there.
Take your time and plan ahead.
Well, I'm looking forward to the game. It's going to be a good one. You making it this weekend?
I can't. No. Work reasons, no. I can't, unfortunately.
Don't fancy the steps?
No. I'm not on my lengthening years, no. Steps don't do too well for me, no. So I'm going to watch from home.
Well, brilliant fixture, an exciting away day, an exciting away weekend if you're heading up on Friday as well. Let us know in the comments below what you think is going to happen at St James's Park tomorrow, and safe travels if you're going up. You Reds!